Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
This time on the Kindness Project, Amsterdam, Omelegg, and we have part one with our interview with Ben Payne.
Some people were eating Twinkies and some people were drowning themselves in alcohol.
I have started the podcast, so who were drowning themselves in alcohol and eating Twinkies?
I was watching Supernatural. I think it's like season 5 or 6 or whatever one Lucifer comes back or something.
Okay. Does he come back a lot in Supernatural or not?
Yeah, but
okay.
like for the first time.
Welcome, my friends. If you feel like you've just sort of logged in and started listening to a podcast halfway through, you are more than welcome to this episode of the Kindness Project. I'm joined by a girl who clearly spends too much time on Netflix. It's Charlotte Dames.
Can't get Supernatural on Netflix.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
Well, unless you're in like America or Japan, but can't get it in England. And you can only get 5 seasons in Japan.
So I'm joined by a girl who watches too much Netflix and clearly too much Amazon Prime and falls down any internet black hole she sees. It's
not difficult.
It's Charlotte Dames.
I'm joined by a man who needs no introduction but seems to get one every week anyway.
Love
it's Chris Dames.
Love it. So how have you been? We've just come back from our hollybobs, haven't we?
In Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. How did you find Amsterdam?
Strange and smelly.
Strange and smelly. I don't think they're going to be letting you write the tourist guides anytime soon.
When I now think about Amsterdam, I now think about all the shops we passed.
Yeah, there are some pretty adult shops in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I mean, Amsterdam is a beautiful place to go.
Yeah, it's lovely and the restaurants are nice.
The restaurants are nice, the
but
jazz...
I didn't need that detour down the back alley.
I mean, this is super bad parenting, but when you accidentally take your kids, like you want to take them for a wander to see some beautiful canals and look at the more salubrious side of Amsterdam, and suddenly you turn a corner and you're in the middle of the red light district. It is a bit embarrassing. And I did try and get you out as quick as I can.
You just led us further in.
I know. It's like a tunnel of debauchery, Amsterdam. So I don't think Amsterdam's going to be letting us write the tourist guide anytime soon. You're going to call it strange and smelly, not a shining example of a good review on TripAdvisor.
The first things that come to mind are the shops.
The shops. She's saying the shops with an eyebrow raise. The shops.
You know what shops.
How about all the amazing stuff we did, like all the art and all the live jazz and all that sort of stuff,
jazz.
As opposed to the shops.
I don't like jazz, especially not the experimental kind. It's weird. And we went to a lot of art galleries and a lot of museums.
That was good. How about that Banksy exhibition? That was amazing.
Yeah.
Not too keen?
I don't remember it.
Okay.
Being honest, I don't remember a lot of that.
Genuinely, I don't know why I bother. I try and give my children these cultural experiences, and suddenly they don't remember.
I remember this one painting, and it was like a really nice painting, and it had "Home Sweet Home" graffitied across it.
That was a Banksy.
And the one on the wall that said, "If graffiti changed anything, it would be illegal." Which I thought was funny because it is illegal.
Clever, very clever. So Amsterdam, your review in 2 words again was
strange and smelly.
Strange and
because
smelly.
Because of the shops and the constant smell when you were in the centre of the city.
Okay.
But it wasn't a negative smell. It was just
drugs smell.
There we go. That's the one.
Yeah, we know what Amsterdam's like, but I think Amsterdam gets a bit of an unfair rap because it's known for marijuana and the shops.
The shop.
But actually there's a lot to do in Amsterdam. It's amazing. I mean, that rooftop concert on top of the Science Museum was really good.
That was funky with the water on the wheels, and I got sprayed by a tiny child doing that.
It was brilliant. So there were elements of Amsterdam that were really good.
Yeah, like the restaurants. Do you remember that burger place we went to? I think it was the last night.
That burger was really good.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was in yours?
I had double cheese.
I was peanut butter chicken.
Oh, at that omelette place.
Oh my god, I didn't even have an omelette there.
Well, I had a savoury omelette called the Popeye, right? So it had spinach in, I think it had a bit of ham in, a bit of cheese in. By the way, if you're in Amsterdam, visit Omelegg. Omelegg is the restaurant we're talking about.
There are other restaurants available.
Other egg restaurants are available. Probably not as good as Omelegg. We got there was a queue at the door.
We waited for about 10, 15 minutes.
And so the anticipation of this omelette was quite...
I connected to the Wi-Fi before we even got inside.
Yeah, that's what the other thing you do. You connect to the Wi-Fi everywhere you go. And then we went in. I ordered a spinach and ham, like quite a traditional omelette. Sophie, banana and peanut butter omelette. Now, I'm going in my head, I'm going, banana and peanut butter? Surely that's a pancake. Oh no, it's just as good in an omelette. And that, I think, my friends, is my new favourite dish.
And I had a muesli pot. I actually quite like them now. They're really
Yeah,
nice.
but I thought that was in a place called Omelegg. You went for a muesli. Why did you go for muesli?
I'm not a big omelette person. That's why I always make my own breakfast when you make omelettes.
That is sacrilege. But as I love you, I'll forgive you once.
I'm just not a big egg person.
Okay,
I prefer cheese.
So today's question of the podcast is one that should be close to your heart. The question is, what's your biggest internet black hole? So when you either go onto an online game or go onto a website or look at something, what things do you suddenly find, oh, that's 4 hours I'll never get back and has gone without realising it? I know what mine is. I've got two. Number one is Wikipedia, because I'll go, oh, there's an interesting article about the actor Nicolas Cage. Oh, he was in Con Air. Oh, let me find out a little bit about John Malkovich. And I'll literally click links in every article.
I did that about iron brew, and I learned about the compound that's in iron brew. And apparently, if you have enough iron brew, you can make pure iron.
How much iron? Right, how much iron brew do I have to make pure iron?
I think it was about the mass of a continent.
So you need a continent full of iron brew to make pure iron.
Yeah, because it's
probably not the most efficient way to make iron.
Because there's enough iron in iron brew. But
is there actually iron in iron brew?
It's part of a chemical compound.
Okay.
So there's a chemical compound in iron brew that's got iron in it. So if you just...
I wonder why that's why it's called iron brew, maybe.
Oh, wow. And I just kind of kept clicking and clicking. And we did this thing once when we finished our work in a lesson. We were just sitting on the computers trying to figure out what we could get to. And we just kept getting back to the same thing. It was like every time we end up in science. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Do you ever, in your own personal time, as opposed to when you're meant to be learning, do you ever? Yeah, that is right. I don't think. How much iron brew do you need to make iron?
That I did in my own time. That I did in my own time.
Oh, good. So, what other internet black holes do you get lost down?
Wattpad. Anytime I go down Wattpad, unless I'm pulled out and just sit and gone.
So that's when people go on. It's like Facebook for storytellers.
Yeah. You go on and you can start a story and then you just post the chapters as you go along. And some people choose to write the whole thing and then post it, but most people choose to write one chapter, post it, write another, post it, write another, post it, and then it gets more popular as time goes on, or it doesn't get popular at all in the case of my stories on there. Anywho.
It's all practice.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
All good practice.
Exactly.
But is there any particular genre that stands out? Or not?
No. Okay, I read a lot of angst.
No, really?
No, really? I read a lot of stuff and it's like, it starts out all happy and nice and then someone dies and it's like,
Right. Why is your reaction suddenly dying? Woo-hoo.
Because
that seems rather wrong.
everything gets out of control and then
woohoo!
it's really entertaining. entertaining. Like, because okay, it's not entertaining in the normal sense where it's like, oh my god, this makes me so happy. It's like, oh my god, I'm so enthralled. Are they going to be better? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to come out of this alive?
Gotcha.
Half the time they don't. It's very funny. I'm just kidding. Only 25% of the time they don't come out of it alive.
Finished? I didn't want to interrupt. You went down your own mental black hole.
I could go further. You remember when we...
could you?
Yeah.
Really?
Do you remember when you asked me about a Glee character and I went on and on and on and on, and you just didn't stop me?
I tell you what, not only do you go down internet black holes, if you mention something that you are even vaguely interested in, you go, right, I've got to now
Here's my list of facts.
spit out every single piece of information I know about that particular character. 45 minutes later, I'm going, I only asked you where you was. I only asked you whether it was Wednesday. Oh, I know a character called Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. 4 hours later.
I don't know a character called Wednesday.
Do you know a character called Tuesday?
No.
Oh. Okay.
No.
Monday?
No.
Oh,
no, there's that movie called What Happened to Monday, and it's about the...
Oh, that is amazing.
I haven't seen it, but it's about the 7 sisters, and they're all named after a day of the week, because that's the day out they're allowed out, and something happens to Monday.
And that is a brilliant film, by the way. Available on Netflix. Other streaming solutions are available. So, the question of the podcast is, what is your own personal internet black hole? And you can get in touch with us on...
The internet.
The black hole that is the internet.
It will swallow you alive.
At Holler Kindness. Email us at holler@thekindnessproject.co.uk. Facebook.
We have a Facebook apparently.
Search it. Yeah. We're on the Kindness Project.
It's
now.
magic. So. No.
And we're on Google. We're just.
And all that jazz.
I'll tell you what, do me a favour. Just Google 17th happiest podcast in the world, and I'm sure it'll come up.
Might have moved up by now.
We might be a little bit further up. Who's to know?
The Happiest Podcast Association.
Do you reckon that's an official association?
The HPA.
HPA, Happy Podcast Association. We're members at number 17.
Do you reckon they release a podcast yearly and they just at the end they go, happy podcasting? I would love that. That'd be funny and iconic.
I don't think that happens.
Oh.
Anyway, so shall we get on with the show?
Sure.
So today's interview is with an amazing man called Mr. Ben Payne. And I've just got to tell you the story of how I met Ben, okay? Do you know the story?
Is it the one about the place with the airfield?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I did a charity skydive earlier in the year, and prior to that, about 4 or 6 weeks to that, I've been invited to an event, a charity event, at a place called the Ministry of Stories. And what the Ministry of Stories does is it helps kids tell better stories and write better and write more. They do amazing work. And I couldn't go to this event for some reason. But 4 weeks later, I am ready to jump out of the plane. The man in front of me puts a t-shirt on saying, The Ministry of Stories. And then I got a bit busy falling out of a plane at 10,000 feet, so I didn't have the chance to talk to him about this t-shirt I recognised. However, when I landed, it went alright. I landed and it was all good.
He's still here?
You know what, it did worry me though, because the guy who was... I was falling out of the plane with him, was 20 years younger than me. He was 22 years of age. And I'm going, you are a boy, and I'm trusting you in my life. I don't know whether this is a good move or not, but he got me safely down, worked out really well. I've gone up to Ben, who was the guy wearing the t-shirt, and said, I recognise, not you, but the t-shirt from somewhere, and I think I was meant to come to one of your charity events a couple of weeks ago. And he went, Are you Chris? Are you Chris Dames? I went, Yeah. He went, yeah, we thought you didn't exist. We thought somebody had made you up. So I was rude to him.
Because your name was so strange.
Yeah, exactly, because I've got a weird surname. He was rude to me. I've never met a man jumping out of a plane before. We didn't shake hands halfway down. We waited till we were on terra firma. But I said to him, look, I'd love for you to come on the podcast and tell us a little bit about Ministry of Stories, and that's what Ben did. And the first part of the interview...
Was I not part of this interview? I might remember this one. No?
No, I don't think you were. Was this week. Would you like to listen to it?
Yes.
So today we're joined by Ben, who is going to tell us a little bit about him and the amazing work that he does. But I want you to first, Ben, share the story about how we met, because it's quite an interesting one, isn't it?
I like this story.
Well, it's amazing who you can meet hurtling 10,000.
Yeah. So we met on the ground. I mean, we didn't meet mid-air, did we? But we were both.
We sort of met just after we landed.
Yeah.
On the ground after a
halfway down and
charity
have a
skydive.
handshake, did you?
That, you know what, that would have been amazing, wouldn't it? Meeting halfway down and just like, hello, I recognise your T-shirt. Yeah, I don't think. Sorry, listeners, we Ben and I met during a skydive. We both did a skydive. I was raising money for a charity up in North London, and Ben was raising money for the Ministry of Stories, who he's going to tell us a lot about. But I was due to go to a quiz night to raise some money for the Ministry of Stories. I couldn't make it, but I did recognise Ben's T-shirt. So I said, I think I know who you're here to raise money for. But yeah, it's a small world, right?
It is, and the weird thing is, as soon as you said your name, I recognised it as the person
who didn't turn up.
Out of about 100 people, we were going, is he coming or not? Does anybody know him?
Does he exist? You know, is he a made-up name? Yeah, I can confirm I am real. I am real.
I'd like to think so.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
You'd hope so. Charlotte, would you? You know what was weird? Just talking about the skydiving for a minute. At the end of my skydive video, I did nominate somebody else to skydive, and guess whose name I mentioned?
Anybody else's but mine?
It was actually yours. Would you ever do it?
No.
Would you ever do it?
No.
Okay, fair
Never.
enough. Okay, so Ben, just so we can start and our audience, our community can hear a little bit about you, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my background is as a writer, and I worked for probably about 15 years in professional theatre as a writer and a director.
Okay.
Developing new plays mainly, and about 10 years ago, I met the other founder of the Ministry of Stories, Lucy McNabb, and it was a very sort of accidental meeting, a bit like ours.
Yeah.
And we were both interested in projects and organisations that supported young people and children to write.
Okay.
So that was our sort of mutual interest, and from that we decided that we wanted to set up the organisation that became the ministry, basically.
And where did that first meeting occur?
It was on a training program for in action learning. We were learning how to be action learning set facilitators.
Okay.
So it really was very, very random. But interestingly, lots of the stuff that we learned through that sort of 6-month training program, we ended up using quite a lot in our thinking about how to set the organisation up. So it was all good, and it was actually also, the spark to something really very important. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. And you mentioned about meeting your partner and then setting up Ministry of Stories. For our listeners who don't know about Ministry of Stories, tell us what it does and the impact it has.
So the Ministry of Stories is a writing and mentoring centre for children and young people. It's based in East London, in Hoxton.
Okay.
and really what we try and do is build the confidence and creativity and craft of children and young people in learning to write better.
Okay.
I'm saying we. I mean, I left the organisation 2 months ago, and
Right.
actually, the last thing I did was the skydive as a way of saying bye to the organisation. So I'm trying to learn to stop saying we.
Yeah.
There now. But anyway, that's the mission of the organisation. I think in effect what we're trying to do is change children and young people's attitudes and ability to write, because for a lot of children and young people it's not something that they find particularly easy or particularly fun, and we really feel that it can be. So that's our mission, is to make it more possible for children and young people to write.
How did you get into writing?
Interestingly, I got into writing because of my dad, something that my dad did when I was 9 years old. And so what happened was I wrote a story. It was my first original story, and it was called Boff the Explorational Dog.
Okay.
So it was about a dog that did lots of exploring.
Adventures.
And I thought there must be a word for a dog that explores a lot.
Yeah.
But I couldn't actually think of the word, so I just made one up, which was the explorational bit. So I made that word up. And the story was, full of spelling mistakes and all over the place and everything. I came up with this rather clever idea. I thought that it was my dad's birthday and that I could give the story to my dad for his birthday without having to buy him a present.
Now, you've never tried that with me, Charlotte. Maybe you could write me a story for my next...
See, I never wrote you a story, but I did once write that parody of Under the Sea and play that on ukulele for you.
You did?
Yeah.
You did write me a song, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, you didn't write me a song. You wrote me the lyrics to a song, which is good enough.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So, can you write me a story next year or not?
Since I'm not already working on it.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that.
I guess the important thing about it was his birthday was on the 9th of December.
Okay.
My birthday is a terrible time. It's 2 days after Christmas.
Right.
So it's a few weeks later. And what he did in the intervening time is he went off and he had the story printed up into 50 little books.
Oh, I love it.
All my illustrations and everything, and he again gave it back to me on my birthday.
Yeah.
And I remember being completely shocked that he'd been able to do that.
Yeah.
And he always remembered what I said, which was when I opened the 50 booklets, I said, "I'm too young to be famous."
Oh, bless. I love that. What did you do with it? Have you... two questions, I suppose. Number one, did you keep a copy of that original story?
Yes, I'm getting slightly anxious about it because I think my mum still has some copies, but I don't actually have one myself.
Right, okay.
It's quite an important thing. And it's an important thing not really just because of the physical book, but actually...
Memory, isn't it?
That gift was kind of what gave me, the kind of confidence and the validation to think something that, I could write, could be published. But it was more about, this is something that I can do. And I think that I took forward to pretty much everything that I've done since. Yeah. And this is a sort of important thing about what we were trying to do at the ministry, that in some way, by involving people who cared about writing and cared about stories, and to some extent, publishing the work that the children did in the same kind of way. Yeah. We're kind of recreating that sort of relationship.
Yeah. How much of the work you do is about inspiring people to believe they can do that, and how much is in making them better writers? Because I'd imagine there's a combination of the two, isn't there? Because when the story you've just told is all about somebody showing you what's possible, right? So how does it work? How does it practically work when you work with children?
Well, I think it is totally about the inspiration, and I think that comes from opening up children and young people to understand that lots of things that they enjoy on a day-to-day basis are actually written. So songs are written, scripts are written, games and all the things that are there around the world involve writers in some way. So understanding that means that they can be put in the role of you can write and you can author those things.
Love it.
I think there is a thing about the better learning to do it better is about understanding that it's not something you just sort of dash off. That if it's going to have an audience in some way,
it needs to be refined, doesn't it?
You need to craft it and you need to edit it, and as soon as they sort of understand that it's actually going to have there's going to be a real person, like it might be their parents, or it might be their peers, or it might be a group of people coming to an event, that they understand that they're going to read their story, or their story is going to be seen or experienced by other people. All of the stuff around editing becomes sort of second nature. They understand that they want it to be good.
They want it to be as best as it can be.
The best it can be. And the key in that is the fact that we recruit around 250 people to be writing mentors. So in every workshop that we run, we aim to have up to 8 people there whose job is to support and encourage them in the writing, because typically what happens in the classroom is you have a teacher and you have 30 children, and it's very difficult to give them the sort of one-on-one attention, whereas if you've got a larger proportion of adults in the room, that becomes much more possible, and that's really fundamental to the way it works.
And that encouragement is probably lacking in bigger classrooms where it's project based as opposed to. And I saw on the website that Nick Hornby was involved in the project. How did he get involved, and what's his involvement?
Well, we were inspired by a project in America called 826 Valencia, which is a very similar, based on a very similar model. And Nick was a friend of the guy who was the sort of trailblazer for that, and set the first one up.
Right.
And he said he used to go and visit him in America, think it would be a brilliant thing to do something like that in London. And then he'd get on the plane, and 9 hours later he'd get off and think, well, I'm a full-time writer, I have a family, I wouldn't know how to set up something like this. And so he sort of stalled. He was always stalling on it. And then actually through another writer who knew that Lucy and I were wanting to do this, we were introduced to him. And so he's been a brilliant patron. We call him our first minister, and he's been incredibly supportive and helpful to us. But he wants the whole job of starting up the organisation, all the stuff that goes into making a charity work. That's not something that he wanted to do.
He didn't want the admin of it, right?
Sorry?
He didn't want the admin.
I mean, he's been a real creative inspiration to us, and having him part of it has made a huge difference in lots of ways.
I can see that.
He was the chair of our trustees for kind of 3 or 4 years, and he's always very modest about that, and said, I don't think I really knew what I was doing there. And we both felt he really often asked us the best questions, because he'd sort of cut through all of the nonsense that we were struggling with.
Sometimes you need that, don't you? You need those incisive questions to help you move forward.
Exactly.
So help me understand what place you think storytelling has in a child's life. So if somebody's coming in, never engaged with storytelling before, as a young adult or child, why do you think storytelling is so important?
Well, our age range is we have gone up to older, up to sort of 17 or 18.
Okay.
But fundamentally, we're about what's called transition, which is the age from moving from primary into secondary school.
Okay.
And there are two things I think that are going on, and they're linked, but I think they are different. That transition from primary to secondary, if you're just talking about sort of educational attainment, is a massive leap for some children. So, for instance, if they don't have English as a first language, or they're already sort of finding reading and writing a bit of a challenge, to suddenly go up into secondary school where you're having to engage with that sort of older curriculum, is a big leap. So anything, we were told by teachers and people working with children that anything you could do to kind of inspire children into thinking writing was possible at that kind of age is going to be helpful. So that's the sort of educational part of it. But for me, I think there's something much more fundamental about it, which is I think at that age the child is beginning to tell the story of who they are.
Yeah.
As an individual. So it's absolutely fundamental to how they then go on in later life. It's a sense of them working out their identity in relation to themselves, to their friends, their family, their community. They're asking the questions about where they are in the world in a very broad way. Yeah. And if you can support them to tell, a positive and authentic and articulate story about themselves, I think it is a huge help to everything that they'll go on and do later in life, whether it's to do with work, but also to do with things like well-being and being able
mental
to
health.
kind of, just be in the world in a way that is positive and optimistic and forward-looking, and in understanding other people as well, which is sort of fundamental.
Well, it's interesting. A phrase that I tend to use and quite like is that we're all heroes of our own story, aren't we? So to a certain extent, the stories we write ourselves through the experiences we have can lead towards how we define ourselves and define our lives. So helping people at that vulnerable age write more positive stories about themselves is a fundamental thing. How about if they want to? They're really good at writing quite dark stories. Would you encourage that? Because I'd imagine that there's an element to say, good dark storytelling, there's a place for that in the world.
Yes,
but maybe not at that age.
And I actually think that at a certain kind of age, where they're sort of moving into adolescence, it's almost a sort of given that they get very interested in those kind of quite dark, gothic subjects. And it's not necessarily that we encourage them, but we don't necessarily say, well, that's obviously a bad thing if they're writing about kind of vampires and dead people and monsters, because we have a shop for monsters. So it's part of how they're understanding the world, and actually it is a natural thing. I mean, I actually remember from work that I did before ministry, which was around young playwrights. Often they would go through that shift literally in the middle of writing a play. So
it starts all sunshine and lollipops and then goes a little bit awry at the end.
Absolutely. And it's even like the handwriting would go a bit sort of odd and scrawly, and you kind of there's something else is happening now, because this was happening over a course of a of a year. So,
Yeah.
there can be big changes happening in those years.
Agreed.
And some of our volunteers would kind of look at some of the things that the children were writing and go, oh, that's a bit dark, and I'm a bit worried that, that means something terrible's happening at home. And we'd always, be cautious and, try and be supportive and ask the right questions. But 99 times out of 100, it was really because it's another way of them exploring the world and their understanding of the world.
And I think as well, there's a catharsis in writing, isn't there? There's an element of getting the ideas out of your head and onto a page, and sometimes
like ventilation.
Like a ventilation of Could you quite like? I mean, you're 15, but you quite like. You're right. Some of your writing's quite dark, isn't it?
It has a really weird range from killing people off and murdering everyone to the cheesiest romance scenes you will ever find.
Oh yeah, you love writing a little from mass murder to romance. I remember I did an English language A level, and there was I don't think I've ever told.
What did you do that for?
I thought it might be good at the time. But yeah, I used to sit next to this boy who, whilst we was in English language, wrote a mini series of stories, all called "You Spilt My Pint," and it was about. Have I ever told you about that? And it was about effectively it was just the same bloke in a different pub every week, and how he attacked the person who seemed to continuously spill his pint. And I thought, I don't know if I'd read that, mate, to be honest. I don't know if I read that. And that brings me on to my next subject, because I suppose the other thing is sometimes we lose both the joy and satisfaction of storytelling when we become adults. And how do you make people continuously excited about storytelling?
Well, I mean, one of the ways the ministry does it, I think, is about the fact that we have these people who volunteer to be the writing mentors. So,
Okay.
I mean, they're amazing because they come in and they donate their time, and they sign up for all these kind of workshops, and they're often with us for, quite extended periods of time. Years sometimes they kind of commit to us, and I think maybe they think when they're coming in that the benefit is all going to be one way.
Okay.
Perhaps their idea is that they're coming in to kind of help children who are struggling, and they definitely are doing that. But there's something about being owned up to children's creativity and young people's creativity that actually the adults find
Inspires
hugely
them. Yeah, gotcha. No, I get that. Yeah.
So it's mutually very beneficial, and then I think as adults, I think we sometimes lose our way in our personal and our professional life. In terms of what we're working on in our day-to-day businesses or in our organisations, or in terms of our kind of relationships as we grow older. And I really believe that forms of writing and storytelling are a brilliant way of actually sorting that through.
I agree.
Thinking creatively and getting it out there and looking at the stuff that you carry around inside your head is actually a fundamentally really beneficial way of dealing with some of the stuff that we deal with.
I mean, my experience is that writing is a bit of a catharsis, and it's just one of those things where it certainly helps. The writing mentors you have, they're typically writers themselves, I'd imagine.
No, not always. I mean, when we were training people, we would try and reassure them that, you might feel, if you had teaching experience, or you were a writer, or you were a big reader, all of that is going to be really great as being a role model. Yeah. But sometimes we would have mums who were kind of from the local community, who were kind of returning to work and seeing volunteering as part of that transition, and actually they had a load of load of skills about how to support and work with children and manage behaviour, all of which is, fundamentally important as well. Yeah. So we always try to sort of say, actually having a diversity of experiences in the room is really helpful. I mean, all the people who are the kind of staff members or the tutors or the freelance facilitators will tend to be, have writing as a skill that, but they might be different writers. They might be poets or playwrights, or they might be copywriters or journalists or speech writers. So they bring that sort of element of the kind of professional understanding of what it's like to be a writer.
And in terms of the young people you support, are they typically around the East London area, or is it more geographically spread?
Yeah, it's primarily about that. So we work with schools primarily in the 3 adjacent boroughs to where we are, which is Tower Hamlets, Islington and Hackney.
Okay.
And then particularly around the after-school community clubs, we call them. The children actually have to live or go to school within 500 metres of the centre, so that is very, very local.
Local, yeah, super local. Yeah. So that was the interview with Ben. You weren't involved. And if you were, Russell will tell us, but I don't think you were.
I can't remember.
But that was a good interview, wasn't it?
Yes. 'Tis the end. I'm trying to be very careful with the mic because it's very temperamental right now. I really don't want to kill it.
And the end is never really the end, is it, Charlotte? Because
the end is only the beginning.
The end is only the beginning of last week's question of the podcast answered this week. And last week we had a question about happiness, funny enough, and it was what song never fails to make you smile? For me at the minute, the answer's simple. It's Bring Me Sunshine, Morecambe and Wise. What's yours at the minute?
Dunno.
And the other one that I really like at the minute, and I can't stop humming, is do 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 do, and the one where they start chatting in the middle. You know what I'm talking about? No. Anyway, the other.
I thought it'd be the Smokey song.
Right, let's talk about the Smokey song next time. If we start talking about the Smokey song, it's going to go...
That's our black hole.
That is a conversational black hole right there. But we will be talking...
We'll get on to it. It's very important.
We'll talk about the Smokey song next week. But we had a bunch of answers. Carol Staunton said, who let the dogs out? Cracks me up every time. Kay Potter said, Walking on Sunshine.
Yes, love that song.
Gillian Bird said, always look on the bright side of life. And, what an atmosphere.
I like the first one better.
Okay. Roberta White said, the sun has got its hat on, and Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder.
Doesn't Sophie love that song?
Sophie loves that song. Lisa Kinggett said, Upside Down by Diana Ross. Natalie Phillips said, Wham, Wake Me Up Where You Go Go. Sue Nolan, Ace of Spades. The Ace of Spades. The Ace of Spades. Cookie, friend of the show, said Mark Morrison, Return of the Mac, The Magic Numbers, Love Me Like You, and A Ha's Take on Me. David Whittington said, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, again, super popular. Catherine
that song's
Knowles
really sad at the end though, isn't it?
Catherine Knowles said, As the World Falls Down by Girl in a Coma. That sounds like that'd be up your street. Very teen angsty.
Well, I am enjoying a bit of Don't Fear the Reaper at the moment.
Oh, you know what one I like that is a bit angsty at the minute? Youth.
We are in the reckless, we are the wild youth.
Yeah, it's a great song.
My daughter, yes.
Colin Lowe said Dignity by Deacon Blue. Gris Bud said Dixie Chicken by Little Feat. Best joke in a rock song ever. Simon Harney said 'Twas the summer of 69. Brian Adams at Warwick Castle on a warm, sultry July evening with great company. My wife, Was that Great Company, my wife, or Great Company and my wife? Don't know.
No, it's saying his wife was great company to have.
No. Excellent concert and a great place to enjoy it too. Many years ago, but still brings back wonderful memories. And Simon Denton said, Friday I'm in Love by The Cure, which is an amazing song. Yep. And that, my friends, is it for this week's podcast. Don't forget the website www.thekindishproject.co.uk. Don't forget you can buy merch on there. Don't forget merch. You just sounded like an old northern man now. Merch. Don't forget that you can email us, tweet us with any comments that you've got about the Kindness Project and much, much more. And we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Bye.